are in the midst of a communication epidemic. For better or worse, exponential technologies are changing the way and shaping the way we communicate and connect. Yes, we've got classic email and voicemail, but we also have Facebook, Instagram, Facebook Messenger, LinkedIn. We've got Slack, Spark, Fleet. We've got Monday, Salesforce. We've got Hive, Rocket, River, SamePage, Asana, Skype, Yammer, and Zoom, just to name a few. But with this communication boom comes an echo that no one ever hears. 5 of the most feared words in the English language are, "Did you get my email?" The question turns us into liars. Did I? I don't think so. That's not the lie. Here comes the lie. It must have gone into my spam folder. Every day, 205 billion emails are sent across the globe. Only 1/3 of those emails are ever opened. 46% of employees leave meetings not knowing what to do next. And 86% of employees blame poor communication for workplace failures, to the point where 65% of them would forego a pay raise to see their manager fired. I mean, if these statistics were about the spread of disease, we'd be calling in the military. And like all epidemics, we suffer from it. Yes, it impacts revenue and business, but it also causes unimaginable suffering, anxiety, stress. And it's all because we either don't know what we want to say or we don't know how to say it, even though we have more tools and technology than ever. In order to create lasting change, we have to learn to communicate in a way that people understand our vision and inspire them into action. But the problem is, this kind of communication is not taught in schools. It's not taught in business. It's actually something we don't feel comfortable doing. It requires courage, authenticity, creativity, the hallmarks of changemakers. Changemakers are driven by big picture purpose. Very specific messages that they repeat. To help, they use narrative. And they share that narrative and build it and allow others to build upon it. And they're passionate about spreading their ideas and allowing others to adopt them. We have to learn to communicate and articulate our ideas and wrap them up in story. These may be the tools of changemakers, but anyone can use them at any time, for any kind of communication. And they may just be the solution to this communication epidemic. A lot of people don't know what they want to say, or they think they do, but they're not sure. In order to have this big picture purpose, you have to start by clarifying your message. Changemakers, like the late Steve Jobs and Dr. Martin Luther King, they were very clear on their messaging. They could imagine a future and articulate it. Steve Jobs, before he got really big and everyone knew him from the iPhone, well, he lived and worked in a time when computers were cumbersome, ugly, hard to use. So he articulated a future where computers were beautiful and easy to use. Dr. Martin Luther King, he lived in a time in the 50s and 60s of radical racial inequality. He literally articulated his vision in his dream speech of racial harmony. So how do we distill down these messages? Well, we can do it by asking 3 questions. What, how, and why? What is not what do you want to do with your life? It's what is the subject? What's the topic? For Steve Jobs, it was computers. For Dr. Martin Luther King, it was racial equality. My what for today? The practice of communication. Next question is how. How provides context for the what, or action around it. Steve Jobs' how was to borrow elements of design, like calligraphy, to help beautify computers. Dr. Martin Luther King's how? To share his message of inclusivity to everyone, to not just certain parties. My message of how today is that communication is hard work, but there are tools and techniques that we can do to make it easier. Techniques like storytelling. And finally, there's why. Why is a question that you kind of have to ponder a little bit. You have to ask yourself, what impact do I want to have? What is important to me? What's important to my audience or my listener or receiver? My why for today is I believe improved communication will make the world a better place. So in a way, we have to tap into our inner futurist, look to that future state and imagine what it can be. But please know this, if you can imagine it, you can communicate it. By using that what, how, why framework to clearly articulate your messaging, you will begin to move towards your desired impact. Now, I mentioned a number of communication tools, but no matter which one you're using, you should use it to do one thing: tell a story. Your ability to share complex information through narrative and storytelling will give you an edge. Stories have tremendous power. One study showed that when we read tense moments in a story or hear tense moments in a story, our brain releases a stress hormone called cortisol, which allows us to focus. Another study showed that when we read a happy ending to a story, the limbic system, our brain's reward center, it releases dopamine, which allows us to feel optimistic and hopeful. Another study showed that individuals in a lab, when they read a metaphor involving texture, their sensory cortex would light up. Now, the sensory cortex is the area of the brain that senses or perceives texture through touch. And so just by listening to phrases like, the singer had a velvet voice, the sensory cortex activated. Whereas singer with a nice voice did not. So storytelling works. There's incredible power to it. Recently, an eye surgeon said to me, Nick, in my next presentation, I am going to borrow from the story of Spider-Man. Because as eye surgeons, we have great power. And with great power comes great responsibility. Thwip. And you know, today we heard some amazing stories. We heard from Marianne early on today, who told a story about painting a sidewalk that reshaped a community. And we heard from Jim how the power of Dungeons and Dragons and that story of playing that with his brother taught him the lesson of community and taught him the lesson of collaboration and creativity. But you don't have to just be a TED speaker to use these tools. In the areas of innovation, in technology, in science, in mathematics, this storytelling ability, this tool to translate the unique and different is more often than not completely ignored. You should try it. Try it. The next time you want to send an email, a Slack message, a voicemail, whatever your communication, wrap up your message in story and you'll find that you will dramatically improve your ability to connect. You will move towards your desired impact. Not long ago, I was out with my running crew. And as in the case with long runs, you can have good ones and you can have bad ones. And that day, I was having a bad time. I was complaining about something. My friend Mary turned to me and she said, "Today is a gift." I love the quote. I'd heard it before, but I asked her who said it, and I was expecting her to say something like Mother Teresa or Mahatma Gandhi, but she, without skipping a beat, said to me, Master Shifu from Kung Fu Panda. The full quote is, "Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift, that's why we call it the present." And I've since sourced the quote, and I think it's from either Eleanor Roosevelt or Bill Keane, but I love it. Today is a gift, but I would adjust it slightly. I would say that communication is a gift. Communication is a gift that we don't take seriously. We take it for granted. Because when we take the time to take our communication, our message, and we wrap it up in story, and we share it with others, they take it with them, and they share it too. They will build upon your story. Communication is hard work, but it is a skill that can be learned. You know, whether you're a student, just starting your career, or somebody who's been working for years, your ability to communicate and connect with others authentically is a differentiator that will shape your success. Because it is not money that makes the world go round. It's communication. And when done right, it can make the world an awesome place. Try it. And the next time you send out a message on one of the tools I mentioned, your message won't just be sent. It will be received, liked, and maybe even shared. Thank you. Thank you.